AITA for refusing to let my brother use my historic home as a free wedding venue and refusing to house him afterward? Posted to r/am ithasshole. 28M. Never thought I'd be posting here, but I genuinely need outside perspective because my family is making me feel like I'm the villain in a story I didn't write. For context, I'm the head librarian and director of our county's public library system. I oversee 3 branches, manage a staff of 22, coordinate literacy programs that serve over 12,000 community members annually, and last year, we secured a $400,000 grant to expand our children's programming. I say this not to brag, but because according to my parents, what I do isn't a real career. My brother Marcus, 25M, works as a nightclub promoter. He's charismatic, loud, and has always been the center of attention at every family gathering. My parents call him the social butterfly everyone loves. Me. I've been the quiet bookworm my entire life, and not in an affectionate way. In their tone, it's always carried a subtle disappointment, like I chose books over being someone worth knowing. Growing up, Marcus's soccer games were family events. My academic achievements? That's nice, Elliot, but could you help set up for Marcus's team party? When I graduated summa cum laude with my master's in library science, my parents left early because Marcus had a networking event at a club. When I was promoted to director at 26, making me one of the youngest library directors in the state, my mother's response was, "That's great, honey, but Marcus just got promoted to head promoter." Isn't that exciting? 3 years ago, I purchased a Victorian home built in 1892. It was in rough shape, but I spent 2 years and a significant portion of my savings restoring it. Hand-scraped the original hardwood floors. Restored the original crown molding. Rebuilt the wraparound porch myself. The detached guest cottage in the back was a labor of love. I converted it from a crumbling carriage house into a fully functional 2-bedroom living space with exposed brick, modern amenities, and original beam ceilings. I did most of the work myself, learning as I went, often spending weekends covered in sawdust and wood stain instead of attending the family events where I'd just be ignored anyway. The house has been featured in our local historical society's newsletter and on 2 home restoration blogs. I'm proud of it. It's the one thing I built that feels entirely mine. Last month, Marcus announced his engagement to his girlfriend, Sophie, 27F. I was genuinely happy for him. Sophie seems lovely, a high school English teacher who I've only met twice but who actually asked me questions about my work like it mattered. My parents threw an engagement party at their house. I wasn't invited to help plan it, but I was expected to attend and be supportive. At the party, my mother pulled me aside with a smile that immediately made me nervous. "Elliot, we've had the most wonderful idea," she said, gripping my arm. "Marcus and Sophie want a spring wedding, and you know how expensive venues are these days. Your house would be perfect. The gardens, the porch, the history, it's exactly what they're envisioning. And then afterward, Marcus and Sophie can stay in your little cottage until he gets his big break in the music industry. Rent-free, of course. You'd do that for your brother, wouldn't you?" I stood there, stunned. "How many guests are they planning?" "Oh, just around 250. Marcus knows everyone. 250 people. In my historic home with original 130-year-old floors. My gardens that I've spent years cultivating. My cottage that I've been planning to rent out to supplement my librarian's salary." I told her I needed to think about it. She patted my cheek and said, "Don't think too long, honey. This is family." Over the next 2 weeks, I tried to have reasonable conversations about this. I explained that 250 guests would require commercial event insurance I couldn't afford. That the original floors couldn't handle that kind of traffic. That I had plans for the cottage. That wedding venues charge $10,000 to $20,000 for a reason. The liability, the cleanup, the wear and tear. Every concern was dismissed. "You're being dramatic, Elliot. It's just one day. You've always been so selfish with your things. This is why you don't have friends. Marcus would do this for you in a heartbeat. Marcus has never done anything for me." For my 27th birthday, he sent me a text that said, "HBD bro," at 11:47 p.m. When I finally said no, firmly, clearly, no, my father called me a disappointment who cares more about wood and books than his own flesh and blood. My mother cried and told me I was ruining Marcus's special day, and that she didn't raise me to be so cold. Marcus himself sent me a voice message that said, and I quote, "Bro, seriously? You're sitting in that big empty house alone anyway. What's the big deal? You don't even use the cottage. Stop being a hermit and help out for once." I've spent my entire career helping others. I've built literacy programs for adults who were ashamed they couldn't read. I've created safe spaces for teenagers who have nowhere else to go after school. I've organized job readiness workshops, ESL classes, citizenship test preparation programs. Last month, a grandmother cried in my office because we helped her read her first book in English after 30 years in this country. But to my family, I'm just the quiet bookworm who doesn't contribute anything real. I'm sitting in my library office right now, surrounded by the thank you cards children have drawn me, the photos of our community events, the letters from adults who learn to read through our programs. And I'm wondering if I'm actually the problem. If maybe I am being selfish. If maybe I should just let them use the house and figure out the cottage situation later. My community sees my worth. Why can't my own family read it? AITA. Edit. I didn't expect this many responses. I'm reading through all of them. Some of you have shared your own experiences with family dynamics like this, and I just want to say, I see you. Thank you for making me feel less alone. Update 1. Something unexpected happened at work. Posted 10 days later. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. The overwhelming consensus that I was NTA helped, but honestly, what helped more was knowing I wasn't crazy for feeling like my boundaries mattered. Something happened at work this week that I need to share. Our library system has a board of trustees, 7 community members who oversee our operations and strategic direction. One of them is a woman named Dorothy Chen, 67, a retired professor of education who has been on the board for 12 years. She's sharp, kind, and has always been supportive of my initiatives, but we've never had a personal conversation beyond library business. After our monthly board meeting on Tuesday, Dorothy asked if I had a moment. We sat in my office, and she closed the door, unusual for her. "Elliot," she said, folding her hands in her lap, "I hope I'm not overstepping, but I overheard part of a phone call you had last week. The one where you were upset." I felt my face flush. I'd taken a call from my mother in my office, thinking my door was fully closed. Apparently, it wasn't. "I'm so sorry you heard that," I started. She held up a hand. "Don't apologize." I recognized something in that conversation. Something I lived with for 40 years. Dorothy then told me about her own family. She was the eldest of 3 children, the serious one, who became a professor while her younger sister became a socialite who married wealthy and her brother became a moderately successful actor. Her parents had always dismissed her achievements, her PhD, her published research, her influence on education policy, because anyone can read books, Dorothy, but not everyone has star power. When her father died, his eulogy mentioned her brother's guest appearance on a TV show but not a word about Dorothy's career. She said she sat in that church and realized her family would never see her clearly, no matter what she achieved. "I spent decades trying to earn something that was never on the table," she said. "Their approval wasn't a prize I could win. It was a game they'd rigged from the start." I felt something crack open in my chest. She continued, "What I learned, too late, I think, is that boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. You're not withholding your house from your brother because you're cruel. You're protecting something you built, and you're protecting yourself from being used by people who refuse to value you." We talked for over an hour. Dorothy shared strategies she developed over the years for managing her family. 1. The broken record technique. When they push, you repeat your boundary calmly without justification. "That doesn't work for me." Over and over. You don't have to explain yourself to people who won't listen. 2. The information diet. Stop sharing details of your life that they can use against you. If they don't know about your achievements, they can't dismiss them. If they don't know your vulnerabilities, they can't exploit them. 3. The witness. Have someone in your corner who sees the dynamic clearly. It's easy to be gaslit when you're alone. A witness keeps you grounded. "I'll be your witness," she said. "If you ever need someone to remind you that what you're experiencing is real, I'm here." I almost cried in my office. Actually, I did cry. Dorothy handed me tissues from my own desk and didn't look away. Armed with this support, I sent my family a message that evening. "I've given this situation careful thought. My home will not be available as a wedding venue, and my guest cottage will not be available for Marcus and Sophie to live in. This decision is final and not open for further discussion. I love you all and wish Marcus and Sophie a beautiful wedding, wherever they choose to have it." My mother called 7 times. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail calling me heartless and saying I'd always been jealous of Marcus. Marcus sent a string of texts, the highlights being, "Wow, real family spirit there, bro. You know Mom and Dad are right about you. Don't come crying to us when you die alone in your museum." My father sent a single text, "You've made your choice. Remember that." I won't pretend it didn't hurt. It did. It does. But Dorothy's words kept echoing. Their approval was never a prize I could win. The game was rigged. Here's where something interesting happened. Sophie, Marcus's fiancée, hadn't reached out at all during this drama. But 2 days after my message, she sent me a private text. "Hi, Elliot. I'm sorry for all of this. I want you to know that I never asked for your house or your cottage. I found out about the plan at the same time everyone else did. I've been trying to talk to Marcus about it, but things are complicated. I hope we can talk sometime. Sophie." I responded simply, "Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate it. My door is always open if you want to talk." I don't know what will come of that, but it felt significant. In the meantime, I'm throwing myself into my work. We're launching a new program next month, a Family Storytime initiative where we bring books to low-income neighborhoods in a converted bookmobile. I've been coordinating with local schools and community centers. It's exhausting and fulfilling in ways that make me remember why I chose this career. Dorothy was right. I can't control whether my family sees my worth. But I can continue building something that matters, for people who understand what building something means. More updates to come, I suspect. Update 2. Sophie reached out. Everything is changing. Posted 6 weeks later. I need to share what's been happening because it's significant, and honestly, I'm still processing it. 3 weeks after my last update, Sophie texted me asking if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity and partly because she seemed like she was genuinely struggling. We met at a small cafe downtown, away from anywhere Marcus might be. Sophie looked tired, not the bright-eyed teacher I'd met at the engagement party. She was clutching her coffee like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to understand that I'm not trying to excuse anything or make you feel sorry for me. I just need someone outside this family to know what's happening." She took a breath and began. Sophie explained that when she started dating Marcus 2 years ago, she was charmed by his energy, his confidence, his ability to light up a room. But over time, she started noticing things. How Marcus talked about you, dismissively, mockingly. How your parents would reference you as the difficult one or the antisocial one. How at family dinners, any mention of your work was quickly redirected to Marcus's latest club event. "At first, I believed them," Sophie admitted, looking down at her cup. "I figured you must be, I don't know, cold, standoffish. But then I actually talked to you at the engagement party, and you were nothing like they described. You were warm, interested in my work. You asked me about my students, Elliot. Do you know Marcus has never once asked me about a specific student?" She said that after the venue disaster, she tried to talk to Marcus about how unfair the expectations were. His response was dismissive. "That's just how Elliot is. He's always been jealous of me. Don't let him manipulate you." But Sophie is a teacher. She works with adolescents. She recognizes deflection and projection when she sees it. "I started paying attention to the family dynamic," she said. "Really paying attention. And Elliot, what I saw horrified me." She described watching your mother interrupt a story you were telling to announce something mundane Marcus had done. She described your father looking at his phone during a conversation with you, then springing to full attention when Marcus walked in. She described overhearing your mother say, "It's a shame Elliot turned out the way he did, but at least Marcus gives us something to be proud of." "They're not even subtle about it," Sophie said, her voice cracking. "And Marcus doesn't see it because he's been the beneficiary his whole life. He genuinely believes he's earned everything, that you've just been difficult, that their treatment of you is normal." I sat there, stunned. Having someone outside the family, someone who'd initially believed the narrative, see through it was validation I didn't know I needed. Sophie told me she'd given Marcus an ultimatum: couples therapy before the wedding, or no wedding. "I love him," she said, "but I can't marry into a family dynamic that's this toxic without understanding why he thinks it's okay. And I can't have children with someone who might perpetuate this with our kids." Marcus, apparently, had not taken this well. He'd accused Sophie of siding with Elliot and being manipulated. But Sophie held firm. "I've seen what these dynamics do to people," she said. "I have students whose self-worth has been destroyed by families like yours. I won't participate in that." Last week, Marcus finally agreed to therapy. I'll be honest, I didn't have much hope. Marcus has never been introspective. He's spent his whole life being told he's special, that his charm is a superpower, that people who don't immediately adore him are the problem. I figured therapy would be a box he checked to keep Sophie happy. But Sophie told me the therapist is good. Really good. A family dynamic specialist who's worked with golden child/scapegoat dynamics before. And she said something happened in their second session that changed things. The therapist asked Marcus to describe what his brother does for a living. Marcus said, "He's a librarian. He checks out books." The therapist asked, "What else?" Marcus couldn't answer. Then the therapist asked Sophie to describe my work. Sophie, who'd spent time researching after our conversation, talked about the programs I run, the grant I'd secured, the adults learning to read, the teenagers finding safe spaces, the community impact. She talked about how public libraries serve more people in a single day than most nightclubs serve in a month. How libraries are the last free public spaces in many communities. How the work librarians do is foundational to democracy itself. Marcus reportedly sat in silence. The therapist asked him, "Marcus, when have you ever asked your brother about his work? When have you ever attended something he invited you to? When have you ever initiated contact with him that wasn't about something you needed?" Marcus couldn't answer those either. I don't know exactly what's happening in their sessions now, but Sophie says Marcus has been quieter. Thoughtful. He's been reading articles she sent him about golden child syndrome. He hasn't reached out to me yet, but Sophie says he's mentioned feeling confused about his childhood memories. "He's always believed a certain story," Sophie told me. "That you were jealous, difficult, cold." The therapy is making him question whether that story is true or whether he was just told it so many times he accepted it. I'm cautiously hopeful. But I'm also protecting myself. Dorothy reminded me that understanding isn't the same as changing, and that I shouldn't wait around hoping Marcus transforms. For now, I'm focused on my work. Our bookmobile program launched last week. We visited a housing complex that's 30 minutes from the nearest library branch. I watched a 4-year-old hold a picture book for the first time, turning pages like she'd discovered treasure. Her mother asked if we had anything that could help her learn English. We did. That's what I do. I bring books to people who need them. I create spaces where learning is free. I serve my community. Whatever happens with Marcus, that's not going to change. Final update, the wedding happened. Not the one they planned. Posted 4 months after original post. I've been waiting to write this update because I wanted to see how things settled. Now that they have, I can share the full story. After several months of couples therapy, Marcus called me. Not a text, an actual phone call. I almost didn't answer. Dorothy happened to be at the library that day for a board meeting, and she was the one who encouraged me to pick up. "You can always hang up," she said. "But you might not get this chance again." I answered. Marcus's voice was different. Smaller, somehow. Not the bravado I was used to. "Elliot," he said, "I don't know how to do this, so I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I've treated you. I'm sorry for how I talked about you. I'm sorry for what I asked of you with the house. I'm sorry for everything." I sat in my office, phone pressed to my ear, not speaking. He continued, "Sophie and the therapist, they've shown me things I didn't want to see. About our family. About how Mom and Dad treated you. About how I benefited from that and never questioned it. I always thought you were just different, difficult. But I'm starting to realize that maybe you were just hurt, and I never noticed because I was too busy enjoying being the favorite." I finally found my voice. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I don't want to get married without fixing this. Sophie won't marry me if I'm still the person I was. And honestly, I don't want to be that person anymore." He asked if we could meet in person. I agreed, again, cautiously. We met at my house. It was the first time Marcus had been there since I'd finished the restoration. He walked through the room slowly, taking in the original molding I'd hand-repaired, the floors I'd refinished, the fireplace mantels I'd restored from crumbling brick. "You did all this yourself?" he asked. "Most of it. Took me 2 years." He was quiet. Then, "I called this a museum in a text. That was cruel. This is beautiful, Elliot. You built something beautiful." We talked for 3 hours that night. Marcus shared what therapy had uncovered, how he'd been groomed to see himself as special, how that specialness required someone to be less than, how I'd been cast as that person before either of us could consent. He talked about how his career, for all its flash, often left him feeling empty. How promoting nightclubs meant convincing people to buy overpriced drinks in loud rooms, and how he'd started wondering if any of it mattered. "Sophie asked me once what legacy I'd leave," he said. I couldn't answer. "But I know what legacy you're leaving. People who can read because of you. Kids who have safe places because of you. That matters, Elliot. That actually matters." I won't pretend it was a perfect conversation. There was awkwardness, some defensiveness that slipped through, moments where I could tell Marcus was struggling to unlearn 30 years of conditioning. But it was real. For the first time, my brother was seeing me. Over the following weeks, Marcus and I talked more. He came to the library for a tour. He sat in on one of our children's story times, watching a volunteer read to a group of preschoolers. I saw something shift in his expression, like he was finally understanding that quiet work has value. He also had difficult conversations with our parents. Those didn't go well. My mother accused him of being brainwashed by Sophie and by therapy. My father said he was ungrateful and that they'd done nothing wrong. Marcus told me that for the first time, he heard their dismissiveness aimed at him, and he finally understood what I'd felt my entire life. They literally couldn't hear what I was saying, he told me. I tried to explain that they treated you unfairly, and Mom just kept saying, "You've always been so sensitive, Marcus, just like Elliot." Like sensitivity is a character flaw. Like feeling things means you're broken. Our parents' lack of self-awareness has pushed Marcus and me closer together. It's a strange silver lining. Now, for the wedding. Marcus and Sophie did not have a 250-person wedding at a private venue. They did not have live performances by Marcus's DJ friends. They did not have an ice sculpture or a champagne tower or any of the other extravagances my parents had imagined. Instead, they had a 60-person ceremony at the Riverside Community Center, a venue I'd helped secure through my library connections with the Parks Department. The center overlooks the river, has a simple covered pavilion, and charges a nominal fee that supports community programming. Sophie's parents were there. A few close friends. Some of Marcus's colleagues who actually knew him as a person, not just as a promoter. Dorothy came as my guest. And in his speech, standing in front of people who'd gathered to celebrate his marriage, Marcus said something I'll never forget. "I need to take a moment," he said, looking at me, "to apologize to my brother, Elliot. Publicly. Because he deserved better from me, and I spent too many years not seeing that." The room went quiet. Most of you know me as the loud one. The life of the party. And I wore that like a badge. But my brother is quiet. He's thoughtful. He runs our county's library system, which means he serves thousands of people every year. People learning to read. Teenagers finding safe spaces. Immigrants preparing for citizenship tests. Grandparents discovering books for the first time. His voice wavered. I used to think my work mattered more because it was visible. Because people cheered. Because I was in the spotlight. But Sophie helped me realize that the work that truly matters is often invisible. It's the teacher grading papers at midnight. It's the librarian helping someone fill out a job application. It's the quiet, steady labor of building community. He turned to face me directly. "Elliot, I'm sorry I never appreciated the quiet work that builds communities. I'm sorry I let our family's narrative convince me you were less than. You're not less than. You're the foundation. And I'm proud to be your brother." I cried. Dorothy squeezed my hand. Sophie smiled at me from across the room like she'd been waiting for this moment. After the wedding, things continued to change. Marcus and Sophie did not move into my guest cottage. They rented a modest apartment near Sophie's school, Marcus's choice. He said he wanted to earn something for the first time, rather than having things handed to him. But here's the part that still amazes me. Marcus now volunteers at my library. Every Saturday morning, he comes in for our children's story time. He reads picture books to preschoolers. He does the voices. He makes them laugh. And afterward, he helps parents sign up for library cards and explains our programs. Last week, a mother came up to him and said, "You're so good with the kids. Have you always done this kind of work?" Marcus smiled and said, "No. My brother taught me. Our parents have not come around. My mother still calls me difficult when I don't answer her calls immediately. My father still brings up Marcus's sacrifice in giving up the big wedding as though I should feel guilty. They've attended exactly 0 library events, despite invitations. But I've stopped measuring my worth by their attendance." Dorothy was right. Their approval was never a prize I could win. The game was rigged from the start. But I found something better than their approval. I found my own. I know who I am now. I'm the quiet bookworm who runs a library system that serves 12,000 people. I'm the guy who restored a Victorian home with his own hands. I'm the brother who held a boundary and in doing so, gave Marcus the chance to become someone better. And every Saturday, when I watch my brother read Goodnight Moon to a room full of giggling toddlers, I think about what Dorothy told me that day in my office. Being loud isn't the same as being valuable. The quiet work is what builds communities. The quiet work is what lasts. And finally, my brother understands that too. Final edit. A lot of people have asked about Dorothy. She's doing well. We've become genuine friends. She comes to the library's events, and I've started visiting her for Sunday dinners. She told me recently that watching my story unfold has helped her make peace with her own. I didn't get the ending you got with Marcus, she said, but I got to witness someone else get it. And that matters too. To everyone who followed this journey, thank you. To everyone fighting their own invisible battles with family dynamics, I see you. Your worth doesn't depend on whether your family can read it. Build something that matters. The right people will notice.